Now this is a little practice exercise to see if we can figure out what all these rules look like. So I'm not sure how easy it's going to be able to see exactly what we're doing here, being so far away. But first of all, look at what happens at 0. Notice this graph is going upwards, so that's just like your graph of sine. But sine normally starts at 0, and this one you can see has been moved down 2 places. So hopefully this should be the graph of sine x minus 2. And sure enough, you can see that that one's true. Now if we go down to number 2, when we look at 0, we can see the graph is actually going down, which is the feature of cosine. Normally cosine starts at 1 though. This one started at 0, so I moved this down 1 place. So this must be cosine x minus 1. Now if we go to number 3, we can see at the 0 value this is starting to go up again, which is just like sine. Sine normally starts at 0, this one starts at 1, so this should be sine x plus 1. And for our fourth one, if we look at 0, we can see this one's coming down, so this is cosine. Cosine normally starts at 1, this one starts at 3, so I moved it up 2 places, so this should be cosine x plus 2. And sure enough it is. Now for this one here, I've changed it to something slightly different. This one I've changed the height of the graph. So you can see it goes from 2 to -2, so I've doubled the graph. Also, as it's going down at 0, we can see this is cosine, so this should be 2 cosine x. And it is. For this one here, we can see this is going upwards at 0, so this looks like the graph of sine. Once again, between 2 and -2, so 2 times the sine graph, so this should be 2 sine x. This one's going upwards at 0, so this is our sine graph again. This time it goes between a half and -1/2, so it should just be a half sine x. And for this one here, well, this has got a couple of things. It's going up at 0, but look, it's not in the middle though. This looks more like our graph of cosine, but actually it's the wrong way round. So actually this one has 2 transformations. It goes from 3 to -3, so it's cosine, but it's 3 cosine x. And the fact that I flipped this graph over, you can see that it's the opposite of this one. This means this should be -3 cosine x. And for these ones, I've given you a starter. I've told you it's the graph of sine, but I've moved it in some way. So sine normally comes up like this. So actually the graph has moved this way a little bit. So we can actually see some of the numbers here, the 90. So this should be sine of x plus 90. Because I moved the graph 90 to the left. I could use the 0 value as well. Normally it starts from here, but now it starts from there. So I got x plus 90. You can also have x of minus 270, because going 90 to the left is the same as going 270 to the right. Tan normally starts at 0. We can see here it's at -45. So to move it left 45, we're going to put x plus 45. Cosine, we know cosine normally starts at 1 here. This time that value occurs at 45 rather than 0. So 45 moved to the right, so do the opposite, and that should be x minus 45. And for this cosine, we can see the highest point is at -60. So I moved it 60 to the left, so we'll do the opposite of that, x plus 60. The last ones we're going to practice on, these are the ones where we have to figure out a couple of things actually, what's actually changed. Most of these look to do with the frequency of the graph. So for this one here, I can see that I have 3 graphs within the 360 period. As it's the sine graph, this should be the sine of 3x. This goes between 1 and -1, which it's supposed to. It starts at 1, so this looks like cosine. And I can see that there's actually 2 cosine graphs here, so this should be cosine 2x. If we go over here, then normally cosine goes down and back up again, so actually it just goes down on this one, so it's just half the graph. So this should be cosine of a half x. And for tan, normally it goes up and then down and up and then down within the 360 period. So notice this one repeats after 360 rather than 180. So actually it's been stretched too, so actually this should be a half. Tan of a half x. If it was tan of 2x, that means it would be squashed in. So you've got to be a little careful when you're doing those questions.